The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Enerho. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
And Jack Barazzini. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
To start, before we do anything else, I want to tell you about another show that's on the StarQuest Network that I know you're going to enjoy. If you like The Secrets of Technology, you're going to like Let's Science. It's a new show that we've started. It's every other week, and it has my three favorite Australians, Carolyn, Lindsay, and Lino, and they talk about a science topic of interest every show, and it can be varied from cool insects to space to why do cats like to sit in boxes. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything, and it's fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. Check it out. You can find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at sqpn.com/science. So check it out. Let's Science. I also want to make a program note next week as we record this on September 14th, which is the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows. I hope that's not a bad thing. Anyway, it's the Feast of Our Lady of Sorrows is September 14th, but it's also the day Apple's going to have its big fall event where it announces its new iPhone 13. That does really sound really bad, doesn't it?
The more you talk about it, yes.
I know. I'm worried. And whatever other new products they're going to announce and that sort of thing. So we'll be talking about that next week. But this week, we've got a fine slate of things to discuss. And the first thing I want to talk about is some feedback we got from a listener. Richard sent in an email. He said, I decided to change from Google search, and I discovered on Bing that you can contribute to a charity from their list, and that there are many Catholic charities that are on the list, including his own diocese, he mentions. And he gave a link, Microsoft.com/rewards/give mode. But if you Google it, you should be able to find, if you Bing it, you should be able to find it readily. And so it's Give with Bing, and it has all kinds of charities in there. And so I guess the thing is as you're using Bing, you're going to generate some cash for your charity, like little bits here and there. It's not going to add up to a ton, all at once, but every little bit helps, right? So so that's the thing. If you're thinking of getting away from the Google and trying the Bing, channel Bing. I always think of that when I think of Bing. Like, how could you not? But do you guys? What do you guys use for search engine?
I just use Google because it's the default and it gets me what I need for the most part.
Oh, see, I'm a DuckDuckGo user. That's mine.
Yeah, same
Privacy
here.
and security.
Yes. So I use DuckDuckGo, and then when necessary, I do the Bang G code. So you know about that? So
Yep.
If you go to DuckDuckGo and you type in your search and you type a bang is programmer speak for exclamation point, because programmers need to change everything. Exclamation point G, it will search Google, but it will strip out all the identifying information. It anonymizes the search. And you can do that GM for Google Maps, GI for Google Images. So it works like that. So if you exclamation point G. So I've done the same thing. I've set my default search engine to DuckDuckGo. All right. So that's good. Thank you, Richard, for that tip. That's a great tip. Let's move on to our primary topic tonight, which is all about buying your own cable modem. Now, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about buying your own router. What do you look for when you're buying a router? But now we're going to talk about buying your own cable modem. And so the first question, of course, is, what's the modem? And what makes it different from my Wi-Fi router?
Well, we got to put that sound in, right? You got to put the good old-fashioned
AOL
dial-up sound.
Yeah.
I got to go find it on Google, on the sound bites, and I'll put it in here. So everyone will know. So what is a modem?
So the modem is the thing that takes the data from your ISP and converts it into something that you can use in your house. That's the easiest way to talk about it. Is It's when you're using your ISP, they have a cable of some kind. It's either a fiber optic cable or it's one of the coaxial cables. that runs into your house that delivers the information down their big pipe. And so that's the big pipe. You have to convert that into something that you can use inside your house, and that's what the modem does. Is it kind of converts that big pipe information down into information that you can use inside your house for all the different stuff that you have connected to it.
Good. That's a good explanation. Yeah, it's the converter, and it's in some ways it's like a gateway between you and the internet and your internet provider. And it does a bunch of technical things which we don't want to get into, but it is a necessary part of your internet connection, and it's usually provided by your internet provider.
Oh, but you're paying for it.
Yes.
You're renting it.
Yes.
And that's, I think that's the key that before we even start this conversation, the important thing to think of is you're renting that thing and they are overcharging you for absolutely certain for that modem.
Right. So that was the next question. So why would I want to buy one instead of use the one my ISP gave me? And that's the first point is you're paying for it already. You're paying to rent one from them, and you're paying an exorbitant amount. Some modems you're paying $10, $11, $12. Some are even $15 or even more, and that's nearly pure profit, right? For them.
For the most part, yeah.
Right.
And this goes into what we talked about last time when we were talking about Wi-Fi routers. Is for most ISPs at this point, they will try to sell you a bundle where you get your modem and your router all in one. And if you buy them both and you buy them separately, you're going to have more control over your own network in your house, and you're also going to have, like, if one component fails, you don't have to worry about replacing the whole thing, which is a lot easier.
Right. And it gives you a lot more options, I think, because if I buy a separate router, I can get like an Eero mesh network or any of the mesh networks, or ones with lots of more features than most combos, modem, cable modem, router combos don't give you. And I think another thing might be is the modems you get are generally kind of cheap from the ISP, the ones that they give you. They're not all that capable of higher speeds and data quality and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and I think one thing to consider there too is that they're not really thinking about, they just want something that works. And so they want a workhorse that's going to function most of the time. And if you ever have problems with your speed, if you ever have problems with your connectivity, it's probably because that modem's having an issue.
Right.
The one big advantage, and this is the only thing that I'll give the ISPs, is the one big advantage is since you're renting the thing, you can always return it and get another one.
They're responsible for it.
They're responsible for it. That's the only advantage they have. That being said, when you look at the price of an actual modem, it pays for itself in less than a year.
Right.
And so, within a year, you're not going to have problems with the thing. It's probably under warranty for that entire time anyway. So the company that you bought it from is probably going to replace it within that year that it's going to pay for itself.
Right.
And a modem is one of those pieces of technology where if you buy a decent modem, you're not going to need to replace it for 3 to 5 years at least.
Right. That's actually something to think about too, is if you've had your cable company, your ISP provided modem for more than 3 or 4 years, even if you're not going to buy a new one, which, someone may come down and say, I don't really want to deal with that hassle. So even if you don't want to buy a new one, you might want to check with them about upgrading your modem. Should I get a new modem? Give them a call to talk to the technical people. You might have to upgrade your speed, but you might actually find out you could get a higher speed plan for the same amount of money if you just switch out your modem. I recently upgraded my speed, and they sent out a new modem, and a technician put it in, and it's like, oh, okay. So that's something to keep in mind, is even if you decide buying one is not for you, you might want to give them a call anyway. And that's actually part of it, by the way, I mentioned, is if someone, one of the pros of renting it, besides they have to support it, is setting up your own modem. Some people may think, well, the installation might be too much of a hassle. Is that really a concern?
For most things, your modem is going to be plug and play. The biggest issue you're going to have is when you're setting up your Wi-Fi. That's where you're going to have to go in and actually mess with your settings and everything. But most Wi-Fi systems now have an app that you can just connect to on your phone that makes it really easy. But for the most part, your modem is you plug in your coaxial or your fiber connection on one end, you plug in your Ethernet on the other end, and you plug that into either your computer or your router, and you're good to go.
Do you have to contact your ISP to tell them I've replaced your modem with my own so that they can approve it?
Yeah.
Well, that and so that they can take the charge off of your
Right.
bill.
Yeah.
So you don't have to keep paying for the one. Yes. Where
You
do
won't
I
keep
send
paying
this
for that
one?
modem otherwise.
Yeah. Where do I send your modem? I'm sending it back. Okay. That's a good thing to keep in mind. One of the things I was reading, and I'll have a link in the show notes about this, is that Comcast, which is might be the biggest home internet provider right now, is in some cases charging people an extra $50 a month for bringing your own modem. And it's kind of a convoluted thing having to do with data caps and unlimited data plans. And basically, for a regular plan, they want you to, they cap your data at 1 terabyte a month, which sounds like a lot until you start downloading things and watching movies and have kids and all that sort of stuff. And so you can, if you rent their modem, it's like $15 a month, which is still outrageously expensive. But if you don't rent their modem and still want unlimited data, well, no, if you don't rent their modem, they say you have to take their unlimited data plan, and that's an extra $50 a month. So there's a $35 surcharge on it. So it's not in every market yet. So just be aware of that, and maybe think about switching to another provider if they try to do that to you. Comcast is they're losing people to cord cutters, and so they're trying to keep their profits in another direction.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So we talked about why I would want to buy my own instead of renting one. And again, just to make it explicit, buying one, maybe $100, $120 for a really good one, renting it $10, $15 a month, that's simple math. We had talked about whether I might want to get a router modem combo or two separate, and probably two separate is better for most. And then the cost, we talked about that, the cost. So what do I look for? When I go to look at online at modems, how do I decide which one to buy? And there's a bunch of different data that technical specs that they have. And one of the first ones I see is DOCSIS 3, DOCSIS 3.1. What do I got to worry about there? Which one do I want?
This one's really easy. If you have 100 megabits per second speed at your house, you need the 3.1 to be able to push it through.
Is it 100 or 1 gigabit?
It's 100, really, because the other one, the 3.0 caps at about 64. So you'll get most of your 100, but you're going to get a cap at about 64. So that's your big issue there, is if the speeds that you're looking for are to hit that 100 megabits a second, you want the 3.1. And the price between them is really, it's like $20-$30 more expensive for a 3.1 than it is for a 3. So
yeah, I would say if you're buying a modem, go ahead and buy a 3.1 because you're going to be future proofing yourself.
Right. Okay, it's 3.1. Then the other thing I see is a lot of times is you see numbers like 8x4 or 32x32. What is that all about, and what numbers am I looking for there?
So that's the pipe conversion. Like when I was saying you got the big pipe going down to the little pipe, that's what you're talking about. So the number on the left side of that is the speed from your ISP. And so if you think about that, that's your download speed. You want a bigger number on the left side. And then the number on the right side is you going back to them. So that's how many channels you can push through to them. Now, the only reason you would want a big number on the right side of that X is if you're trying to run a gaming server, a website, some function that you think a lot of people are going to be coming to your, they're going to be needing data from your internals. That's the only reason you would need a bigger number on that.
A lot of different people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of different people, not just one person. If you got 5 people visiting your website, you're going to be okay.
Right. So the number we want, like what would be the basic number we want to make sure to have on that left side in the downstreams?
It varies. it depends on your house. If you're an IoT house that's got a lot of stuff that's trying to talk back and forth, then you're going to want probably in the 32 range. But if you've got, one main streamer that's like the TV in your living room, and then a few laptops that connect or some things that are on at different times, then you can get away with a lower number there. 8's low. So 16 to 32 is probably good.
Yeah, 16 minimum, 32 is better. Is probably okay. And again, the difference in cost is not huge for like say 8 to 16 to 32.
Yeah.
And then in addition to those two bits of data, we need to know the download speed that the modem's capable of, right? Like if I'm paying for 500 down and 100 up, I want a modem that can do 500 down at least, right?
Yes.
And probably build in enough for what I'm hoping to do within the next, like if we replace this every 3 years, kind of look out 3 years and say, am I going to need more than 500 in 3 years? And if I think I am, maybe I need to get one that's a little more capable and build in a little extra.
Right. And if you're buying a modem that can do DOCSIS 3.1, most likely it's going to be able to handle at least a gigabit, if not more. But obviously the higher number, the better.
And of course, that different ISPs, Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, all the different ones, different modems will be compatible with different ISPs, right? So I need to make sure my modem will work. What's the best way to make sure that my modem will work with them?
I check the product page.
Okay.
Check the manufacturer page. They'll usually list who it works with, and if you're having any questions about that, you can either call them or call your ISP.
Okay.
And your ISP might try to give you the runaround. Like even when you're replacing your modem, they're going to try to give you the runaround about that because they want to make that extra money. But if you just keep pushing them, you're like, no, I'm going to do this. What information do I need? They will eventually give you what you need.
Right. I think they recruit their customer service people from used car sales lots. I mean, it's really, they're really pushy. Yeah. And at the least that you could do is Google or Bing, blank ISP compatible modems. And you could go, like, that's probably a place you could start even. But is there one you'd recommend, a place to start, a modem that would be a good starting point, or one that you recommend in general?
I would say, and I put this in the show notes, the Aris surfboard series is really good. I linked one in specific. It's the SB8200, and it's $120 on Amazon as of this recording, and it's DOCSIS 3.1. It works with Cox, Infinity, and Spectrum, and it's got a 2,000 megabits down, which is 2 gigabits. So that's going to cover most anyone's needs.
Yeah, Aris makes great products. And the other one I would recommend going with is Netgear. Netgear is they make solid network products, and they're reliable. They do tend to be a little more costly, but you are definitely getting your money's worth out of that extra cost.
Good. Awesome. Any other things that anyone would need to know about replacing their modem? Any concerns, the installation or anything like that?
I would say knowing what your connection is really important. That's one thing that we didn't touch on too much, but the difference is that there's a cable modem, which is that coaxial line in, and then there are fiber modems, which are the other variety of connector that you have. Now, most people are going to have the cable modem. Even if they have a fiber connection, there's probably built into your house for everybody an automatic conversion from fiber to cable. So just know look at the modem you have right now. Look at what's plugged into the back of it. If it's one of those cables that looks like the old school TV cables, then that's a cable. You just need a cable modem.
If it's a black cable with a circular silver end and a little pointy bit sticking out of it, that's probably coax, and that's what you want. Yeah, I have FiOS, and the converter is on the outside of my house. It's like there's a box, right, and they drill a hole through the wall and run a coax cable in. So yeah, so that works there. And if you're looking to make sure that it's compatible with your ISP, you should be okay there.
Right.
Good. So if folks have other questions about buying your own cable modem to replace the one you're renting and saving you some money, let us know. technology@sqpn.com. We'd be happy to field any of your questions and to let you know what there is to do with that. And I'm going to have some links in the show notes. How to choose the right cable modem, an article in Tom's Guide, which is a great website. Renting versus buying a modem and router from Broadband Now. They have some good. They have a good factual rundown. And I mean, their Broadband Now is very much in favor. In fact, most people are in favor of you buying as opposed to renting. And then I'll have a link to that Comcast article about Comcast really charging people that extra money.
It's crazy.
It's
Well, the thing that kills me about it too is like one of the arguments that I've heard is that if you call customer service, they'll say, "Oh, well, I'll just ping your modem and reset it." And that's something they can do even if you have your own modem, because what they're doing is essentially just sending a buzz down the line that even if you have your own modem, when it receives that buzz, it goes, "Oh, okay, I'll just restart now."
Right.
That's just what it does. So really the only step you're cutting out on them is them being able to just look at it and get a quick feedback about what's happening with that modem.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't like that, but it's really not harmful to them. You just tell them, "My modem's not working. These are the symptoms I'm experiencing. Could you just ping it? Let's try that." And then if that doesn't work, you move on from there.
Right. One thing we didn't mention that might be an advantage too is like with Xfinity, like Comcast's, and a lot of them are doing this now. There's your cable modem with a route with a Wi-Fi built in is acting as a hotspot, a public hotspot. And they say that it doesn't affect your security and it doesn't diminish your broadband. But if you feel hinky about other people getting on your network, even a little bit, using your hardware while walking by or driving by, this breaks that. You know, they won't be able to do that anymore. So that's your home will no longer be a public hotspot, and so that's something to keep in mind as well. That there's another reason maybe to do this. Yeah, and I might buy a 3-year extended warranty on my cable modem if I bought my own. That might be worthwhile for a few extra bucks, but something to think about.
Gives you that security of being able to replace it if anything happens.
Exactly. All right, good. That's a good discussion. So before we move on to our headlines, I do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Jason E., Ricky T., Ashley G., Jim H., and Monica V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology in all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So a little follow-up headline to start with. We talked a few weeks ago about Apple's controversial plan to with new child protection features that were going to come in their software on their various devices, mostly I think in iOS and iPadOS. But it was 3 things. It was going to be a special protection on devices that they knew were owned by kids under a certain age, that if they were receiving explicit images or searching for certain things, that it would pop up warnings and eventually could tell them, "I'm going to tell your parents on you." If you don't stop doing this. And so there was that. There was another one called Siri search, where it would look for particular keywords that people were searching for, and if they were, especially if kids were looking for certain things, again, alerting and saying, no, this is inappropriate. And then perhaps what I think might have been the most controversial is they would be scanning people's iCloud photo libraries for what they call CSAM, child sexual abuse material, or child pornography, and then if it finds certain things, it would alert a private organization that works with law enforcement, the National Center for Exploited and Missing Children, and Missing and Exploited, NCMEC, Missing and Exploited Children, and they talked about all the ways that they would, the protections that they would be, try to weed out any false positives, and it would be extremely, safe. And one of the things they said at the time was, well, look, Google does this already, Microsoft does this already. All of these online, Google is scanning its Google Photos and Gmail. They've been doing it for years. Apple hasn't been, and now they're going to do it. But people kind of got all upset. And one of the things that happened is people got upset because the scanning was being done on device. Apple said, hey, we're not going to scan your stuff in the cloud. That's private. That ruins your privacy. We'll scan your photos with this scanning system on your device. And they didn't understand that people would get upset about that. What do you guys think about Apple? Now, after all the controversy, Apple has said, we're going to pull this back and think about it and get back to you later on when and if we do this again. What do you guys think about all this?
I know that we had some conversations offline about this, Dom, but
yeah,
I understand both sides of the argument. I understand being upset that Apple has kind of pulled the rug out from under people, because their argument for a long time has been, especially with iMessage, is this is end-to-end encrypted. Nothing is going on. Nothing is going to intrude on this. And they kind of flipped the switch on that with this. But I also understand that this is not the same thing as, I've seen some people make the analogy that this is like Apple coming into your house and like searching through your drawers and making sure you don't have any contraband. It's not really the same thing, because you are storing your data on their systems offline. And so there needs to be some sort of accountability for that, because these are systems that are going to be exploited by people who want to do nefarious things. I think it's just a matter of navigating where is that line, and how do we view that paradigm shift with this kind of data, because people are always going to exploit these kind of systems for criminal purposes.
I'm interested at the fact that it was on the device that bothered people. Like, as if somehow it having been in the cloud in between would have been better. I don't like, if it bothers you, it bothers you. I don't really see how.
I think the problem was they were installing the mindset, or the thought was, Apple is installing a surveillance system on my phone, which then opens up the door to other government agencies saying, we want access to that surveillance system that you've installed on the phone.
Oh, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about this when we talked, originally in episode 127, you and I and Pat, and and at the time I was saying, yeah, but then Apple could say no. Like, just because they've opened the door to one thing doesn't mean that they have to open the door to all the rest. But yeah, I agree. Like, if you're upset that your stuff is being scanned, you better be using, well, I was going to say Proton Mail, but that doesn't work anymore. Proton Mail just came out that they had been giving stuff to law enforcement. But you better be using systems on that don't upload stuff into the cloud, because all the stuff, all your mail, all that stuff is being scanned for either this sort of stuff or other things, wherever you go. So I feel like you're fighting a battle that's already been lost in that case, in one sense.
But the counter to that is, even if it's been lost, we can't just keep losing, because eventually it is going to be key loggers that track everything that you say, and the thought police knocking on your door.
Yeah.
Right. We do need to push back.
I think the hard thing is that, and this is where I've been kind of trying to view it, is that a lot of the times, like, the criticisms of this kind of system are valid, because it is not to use that term, but a slippery slope of an intrusion of our privacy. But I do think we kind of need to shift the way we're viewing things, and that people kind of come up with analogies where it's not the same thing as like someone coming to your house and searching through your thing, or someone searching on your mail. But because if you have this kind of information, which is infinitely copyable, it is a different kind of impact than it would be if it was a physical item. And that's why it's different from like one person doing something in their house that is criminal. If you are doing this kind of thing, you are sending it out to potentially thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So it is a different kind of problem, and we need to figure out culturally where we're comfortable with the bottleneck being in terms of things being searched.
And to be clear, as we talked about before, they're searching for known files. Like these they're not looking for, oh, you have a photo of a naked kid in a bathtub. Well, that's just my 2-year-old. I was giving him a bath. I thought he looked cute. No. That's not to happen. What they're looking for is known stuff that's on file that they've seized from criminals, and they're using the hashes on that. So that was, and I don't think anybody is saying, there is no one who's saying we should be allowed to have this sort of material.
Right.
It's not about the stuff they're trying to stop. Sometimes I think what it is law enforcement says we need these tools to catch all kinds of criminals, but they use like the worst kind to justify it. You know, we need backdoors because you don't want this kind of bad guy using your stuff, right? And we all like, no, we need to stop those guys at any cost, and maybe not. You know, that might because once you open a security backdoor to a system, that door's like it's going to get broken through by everyone, not just the people who it's intended for. Like a door is a door to be broken through.
We've talked about like Clearview AI on this show before, and that's the same kind of thing where like it might be useful to catch some criminals, but if the people who are using that tool, once they get that power, they're not going to relinquish it. And that's the worrying part.
Well, and that's the interesting thing here too, is like, this is an actually good application of a machine learning algorithm, because I don't know Apple's code. So this is complete conjecture, but I'm sure this is the way they were going to do it, just because the way they talk about it. What they were going to do is put a piece of software on your phone, and because this is the one I think is the most concerning to people, is the catching of the messages, right? The kids doing things that they're not supposed to do, and then that being caught. You could compare that to a keylogger, but the thing is that a keylogger is only as good as where the information goes. And so if you've got a machine learning algorithm that's sitting on the phone doing a narrow set of things, just looking for, this kid's under 13, they're looking for this one of these trigger words, and then just popping up a message that says, are you sure you want to do this? Maybe let's get your parents involved. To me is really not, it's not phoning home. It's not going back to anywhere else. It's just keeping this, it's got this narrow band of things that it's doing. And I can see where it gets hairy when you talk about, okay, well, we are actually going to notify the parents. That's a little bit, because then that means there is information going somewhere else that is triggered by something. But I don't know. I mean, I think that's a clever use of this concept of AI and machine learning that separates those two things. It's not like there's somebody sitting there watching everything that's going on and making sure that the 13-year-old is doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, here's a similar story that was in the news just this week from ProPublica, the public interest journalism project. They reported that WhatsApp, owned by Facebook, so it's going to be bad because it's Facebook, but WhatsApp is the most popular messaging platform in the world. Outside of the US, it's everybody. And one of the things that Facebook has promised for years, after they bought WhatsApp for a couple $1 billion, 20-something billion, I think it was, they promised that it would stay secure. It has end-to-end encryption. We're not going to be reading people's messages, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it turns out that they do read the messages in certain circumstances, and it's not like open-ended. If someone in a conversation, whether it's in a group or one-to-one, reports the conversation to Facebook, someone's being bad, someone has said a mean word to me, or whatever it is. I mean, it could be a valid, someone's stalking me. I shouldn't minimize it. But if someone reports a conversation, that message and the previous 5 messages are sent to content moderators they don't call them content moderators, but it's sent to humans to review. And so under certain circumstances, that information is visible. It's not end-to-end encrypted. It's an open door, and people are kind of losing it over this, even though it's a very limited view into this. But the fact is, Facebook has burned all their credibility and their reputation many times over to this point, and so no one trusts Facebook. And so even this small step that they've taken, which they probably didn't even think was a big deal, hey, we're trying to keep people safe, is seen as a big deal. And I think that's a similar thing here. Even though this was a small window that Apple has opened, it is seen as, okay, but look at the implications, the possibilities, the philosophical change that this makes. I think that's probably why, and probably why Apple didn't get out ahead of this, why they got caught, unawares. I was going to use a different term, but it got caught unawares. Is they didn't see this as that big a deal. But of course, everyone is looking at the totality of the situation and the internet, and that's why it's a big deal. So,
yeah, it's a hard thing.
Yes, I wouldn't want to be the guy at Apple in charge of trying to implement this sort of thing and try to keep everybody happy. This is, like you said, it's a hard thing to do. Speaking of not keeping everybody happy, let's go to our next headline. This one kind of struck close to home for me because it's a service I used in the past. Lowcast was a pick of the week from me on a previous episode a while ago. Lowcast was a local TV streaming service. And the way it worked was you logged into their site and you told them where you were, and you could watch all your local programming, all the local over-the-air, news channels and all that sort of stuff that you would normally get from your cable company. And you say, well, how could you do that? That seems to be a violation of the, that other companies have tried to do this before, Aereo and others. Lowcast did it because their legal theory was we're a nonprofit, and so therefore what they did was technically set up antenna in different markets, and you were using an antenna. You weren't renting it. That was what Aereo's thing was. You were renting an antenna, and that got shot down in the courts. But you were using an antenna that they made available for free. You could use it for free, and that was their legal. Since they were nonprofit, they were gonna get by on that. They got sued, of course, and the court said, well, here's the problem. You were, every few minutes, a certain period of time, you would pop up an ad encouraging people to become monthly donors at $5 a month to help support the service. And that is over and above the cost of providing the service enough that you were violating the copyright of the copyright owners by rebroadcasting their broadcasts. And Lowcast, at first, I got an email from them saying, we're going to have to, we're taking out the ads in order to satisfy the court, so there won't be any ads at all. You'll just be able to watch. And then a day later, we're shutting down. So what do you guys think of this? It's this. Do you think anyone's ever going to be able to do this free rebroadcasting of streaming of over-the-air TV in markets? What do you think?
Probably not as long as the big guys have all the lawyers behind them.
Mm-hmm.
It really has to do with who has the deepest pockets.
Which is sad. And the thing that really upsets me about that ruling is the fact that it was a monetary number. Like they put a number on it that said, because you're operating above cost, that violates someone else's rights. And it's like, well, what does that mean? If you're an artist and you're being supported on Patreon and you're doing fan art, right? As long as you're not making a profit, you can so if you're only doing it the cost, so like it gets really, really hairy really fast. And I don't like that there's like this, oh, you're taking a job from someone else if you're making a profit by the donations that you're getting. That's
And this is a very specific thing. Like they weren't taking out the local ads. They weren't doing anything except just capturing a signal that's being broadcast into the air, right, and running it through the internet. Like if I went down to a building in Boston and got permission to put an antenna on the roof and ran that into an internet connection and picked it up on my house, that's fine. I mean, I could do that right now on my roof. I'm legally allowed to do that. If someone does it, if I have a friend who puts it on their roof for me, is that legal? Maybe. Now, if I give them a couple bucks a month for the cost of it, then I'm now in illegal territory. It's this weird. Mm-hmm. It's yet another case where our laws have not caught up with technology. The technology has far outpaced our mm-hmm. laws, and there's a very large vested interests who don't want them to catch up.
Oh yeah,
right. Well, this hurts people who need local news for, like, if you have got a storm or like an emergency situation. Like, this is a service that could be provided to them, and this ruling is going to cut off people who need that service.
Well, when we had the remnants of Hurricane Ida blow through, and I was a little worried that we were going to lose power. If I lose power, I don't have local cable TV. What I do have is a phone with an internet connection.
Right.
I could watch my local news and get vital information through Lowcast, but I can't now. You know, that's the thing. It's not. I don't know. I think part of it is they're afraid that's yet another reason for people to cut the cable cord and do without, and that would put Comcast and Verizon and the others a little even more out of the money than they are now.
Well, I was going to say you could always watch your news on their website, but you might encounter a paywall.
Right, or just the ads that make it impossible to use. Almost every local TV station's website is horrible. It's just horrible, without exception. Please show me one that breaks that exception.
You mean you don't like the ads telling you that like eating a pound of ginger a day is going to cure all your ailments?
Oh my gosh. And it fills the screen and slows down the browser, and then every 20 seconds the news broadcast is interrupted by another inane ad for ginger or acai berries or something.
See, I'm so glad I downloaded Vivaldi and just block all that nonsense. And I get every once in a while I'll get a website that says please disable your ad blocker, and I'm like, no, I'll just go somewhere else. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's been my. Yeah, I've had ad blockers for a while, and if someone posts a link to Washington Post, I don't bother going because I know they're not going to let me through.
There's a paywall. Yep.
And so, oh well. I mean, there's other sources of news out there that aren't going to block me. So, that's a whole nother conversation about reasonable ads, reasonable advertising. All right, let's move on to our next headline, which is about this Australian court. So this is interesting. An Australian court has ruled that an artificial intelligence can be considered an inventor on patent filings in Australia. So this is specifically Australia. So the justice who is in charge, who made this decision, said that there is nothing in Australian law that says that the applicant for a patent must be human, which I don't know. Is that maybe not assumed? Like, it also says that, that you can't, I don't know, kill somebody. Like, I don't know. It was just like, I think most laws assume that you have to be human. That's the laws apply to human beings. What do y'all think of this decision?
I would just say, quoting from the Orange Catholic Bible, "Thou shalt not create a machine in the likeness of a human's mind."
All right.
Good old Dune reference.
Yes.
What about a driving car?
A self-driving car?
Self-driving car. It's got to be moderated somehow, and there's and if the car runs into someone or runs into some property, there needs to be a way for that to be recompensed. And I think that this is paving the way for that kind of thought.
Well, the owner is responsible. The owner of the car.
Correct. Is the owner or the writer of the software that created the
software that created the car?
But the law already covers this sort of thing. Is if the owner is of the car is negligent, the owner is responsible. If there's a fault in the manufacture of the vehicle or the programming in this case, then it's the manufacturer. I mean, we don't hold the car. What are you going to do? Put the car in jail? Like, I mean, that's the thing.
Well, I think we could start setting a precedent there and saying that, okay, so there is an automatic fault with the vehicle itself, and that trickles up to the manufacturer because at some point the manufacturer failed in some safety measure, and that's what caused this particular vehicle to fail. So that's the way that's going to fall out. I think with this decision, you're also going to have that same kind of thing where you might have an AI invent a new way of solving an equation, solving a math problem, solving a science problem. And that AI was written by someone. So the patent belongs to the AI because that person didn't actually figure out this thing. But the patent lies with that particular running of the AI. Now, the thing that I think is going to be really interesting here from a programmer's perspective, like 6 levels deep on this thing, what happens when you rewrite that AI or when you copy it and make a new version of it?
But that's precisely the problem. Is the law pertains now? I'm not a lawyer. Don't play one on TV. the real lawyers could tell me. But the law pertains to persons in the
Mhm.
law. And we have in the U.S., corporations can be legal persons. In canon law, parishes are juridic persons. They are legal persons within canon law. So they have rights in and of themselves. But are we going to give personhood to the AI? And like your example about if someone writes an AI and the AI does a unique thing, does that unique thing belong to the AI or to the person who wrote the AI? Because if I own an elephant and that elephant paints a painting, whose painting is that? Is it my painting or is it the elephant's painting? Well, we have not given legal rights to elephants or monkeys or dogs, porpoises, maybe eventually, but we haven't yet, and I'm not sure we should. So that painting belongs to the owner of the elephant. I think that whatever that AI creates belongs to the person who owns that copy of the AI, who has licensed it probably, because that's where we are with software.
Mm-hmm.
Especially given that we can't own persons. That would be slavery, of course. So we couldn't be able to own an AI.
It opens up a lot of really interesting legal.
You say
avenues.
Interesting. I say bad. Dystopian, I think, is the word I was looking for. I don't know.
I think it's really an open-ended question at this point, but I will recommend a book. I'll put it in the show notes. It's called What to Think About Machines That Think, and it is a collection of essays about this very issue, about how do we deal with AI going into the future as they become more advanced, and that line between autonomy and the creators is blurred. It's a really interesting book, so I'll throw a link in there.
So I'm remembering that we did an episode in early 2020 of this show where we talked about a Vatican conference on the topic of AIs. And I think this sort of thing was brought up, and I'll have to see if I can. Yeah, it was episode 55 from March of 2020. So right before everything went to hell in a handbasket. So yeah, there was an AI initiative and they called for AI ethics and other things. I don't know if they talked about AI personhood, but this is definitely a question that really philosophers, ethicists, theologians should start grappling with as well. Like, what does it mean for an AI? Should an AI, like an AI will never be a person like a human being made in the image and likeness of God, and the church will never I don't think that I can say with some certainty that the church is never going to consider an AI to be a person like a human being is a person. But short of that, should AI be given legal rights? Should they be given human rights of any sort at some point? I'm pretty sure Jimmy Aiken and I have had conversations along these lines, especially at Secrets of Star Trek. And as he says, data's a toaster. If you can turn him off and turn him back on, it's not a person. So,
see, and I do come at that from a different angle. I really do think I don't think we have anything approaching a self-aware object at this point, but we do have machines that are doing creative work that I believe should be recognized as independent from the person that wrote the program, because it's not something that the person that wrote the program would have ever done. It's truly unique work that deserves at least the recognition of it being independent. Now, like you said, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what all the implications of this legally are, but I do believe that we need to start recognizing that we are creating machines that are doing creative work on their own. And that's a double-edged sword where you have it's great because it takes a lot of the burden of some of the tedium of creative work off of the human, right? Mm-hmm. And so we write a program to go back and look at all the stuff that we didn't really want to look at and figure out what some of the conclusions are and point us in the right direction. And then we go and check afterwards and say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. That did really actually work. But then the other side of that is we don't know what the machine is going to come up with all the time, because there are these hidden layers of what the machine learning is doing. And So you never want to give. There should never be a situation in which an AI is weaponized, where it has the mindset to go and kill and the ability to go and execute that, because we don't know what that decision is going to come down as, and we can't program ethics into a machine. And that's a very important. I mean, we've already seen with humans sitting at a computer screen running a drone on the other side of the world, that there is a disconnect between them feeling like they're actually doing something that they have a moral judgment on, and just following orders and doing what they're supposed to do, or it's almost like playing a video game, right? And so if humans are susceptible to that, just imagine a cold, logical machine that just makes decisions based on crunching numbers and not any of the other things that we need to have as humans.
A machine can't empathize, because empathy is a function of love, which is built into our human nature, which is our imago Dei, the image of God in us. And that you can't put that into a machine. That's never going to be there. I'm more skeptical, but this is a difference of opinion which has no solution at this point, I think.
Right.
So, but I'm glad of the discussion, and as this comes up more and more, we should continue to discuss further cases. I should follow up that U.S. and EU law, I think, specifically states that a patent holder must be human. So it's not going to come up in the U.S., at least until they change that law.
Vulcans need not apply.
That's right. Poor Mr. Spock. No patents for you. All right. So let's move on to our picks of the week, and we'll close things out with that. And our first pick is going to go to you, Thomas. What's your pick this week?
Okay, so my pick this week is really nerdy, and it's marginally techie. I'm into tabletop wargaming, but anybody who's into tabletop wargaming knows that it is incredibly expensive and very complicated. And there are lots of arguments and rule fights and, going back through massive manuals to read rules and stuff like that. Well, just recently I found this really great tabletop wargaming community that's called One Page Rules. And what it is they boil the wargaming rules down to what fits on one page, front and back. And they have a bigger manual that explains all of the, outside cases and intricacies and things like that. But basically you have one page of rules that handles the overall mechanics of the game. And then you have one page of rules that is your armies, how to build your armies and what the rules for your particular units are. And fantastic community. They have basically taken one of the very prominent properties in wargaming and made knockoffs of those properties. So one is called Grimdark Future, and the other is called Age of Fantasy. And they're if you know tabletop wargaming,
I wonder what those are references to.
You know what they're references to. If you don't, I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so I'm not going to point out which ones they are. Okay. But you'll know as soon as you see the pictures, you'll know what they are. You'll go, oh yeah, that's that one. But
the
it's
guy in
fantastic.
this picture has a hammer he's carrying.
Yeah. It's like,
sorry.
So, but it's really great. The rules are fantastic. The rules are all free. The one-page version of them and the basic tabletop sets are all free. There's a lot of resources that are available for making paper miniatures. They have a few free 3D prints that are out there, and then they have a Kickstarter campaign that's they are making 3D models. And you buy your whole army is a unified visual set, and you can buy the 3D models and print them yourself on your 3D printer. And but the community's fantastic. I'm on their Discord and on their Reddit page, and they're really great about the rules, really great about talking through things with you, and just shooting the breeze about all sorts of tabletop wargaming stuff.
Cool. Awesome.
That's awesome.
I'm going to check that out. And Jack, what is your pick this week?
So I recently found myself in the position of needing to get a new cell phone because my iPhone XR died. And I decided to jump ship and go back over to the Android world. And I picked up the Google.
Shun him. Sorry. Go ahead.
Picked up the Google Pixel 5a 5G, and I've had it for about a week now, and I really, really like it. It's got 128 gigabytes of storage. It's got like I said, the 5G. It's got the most recent version of Android. It's got the nice pixel cameras and all the Google AI software along with the camera, which is really nice. And the main reason I went for it is that it was $450 as opposed to getting a new iPhone or used actually iPhone XR, which is still at least $100 more. And I know it's kind of the lower version or the mid tier for Android phones, but for 95% of people, it's going to be what you need. And I like it a lot, and you can get it unlocked, and it's a good phone, good solid phone.
Cool. Yeah, I seem to think Father Corey is a Pixel guy too. So yeah, his is a little older, but it's a nice phone. I mean, if I was gonna go Android, not that I'm not going to, but if I was, I would probably be looking at the Pixels because that's a good phone. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So my pick this week is another piece of a little bit of software that it's from a company called Manytricks, and this is a Manytrick pony. It's called Moom, M-O-O-M, and what this does is it lets you move and arrange your windows on your Mac. It's a Mac software with ease, and it does it in several different ways. So one of the ways it does is it with key combinations. So if I call up the Moom window, and you could use you could set it for whatever key command it is, but I have it programmed to a key on my computer, and I can bring in this window, and I can move a window of a program to fill up the left half of the screen, the right half of the screen. I can send it to my other monitor. I can make it a quarter size. If I hover my mouse over the little green, expand. So the Macs have the red, yellow, green buttons on the top of every window. If I hover over that, it drops a little window down, and I can sort of draw on a grid where I want my window to be in my screen and how big. I can set custom settings, so I can say set up my monitor for podcasting, and when I do that, it makes a thin browser window from Brave, about I'd say a quarter of the screen on the left. Then it puts another browser window that's about half the size of the screen to the right of that. It moves some other windows around, and it does all this, and then I can say I'm done, and it puts everything back. So it does all these very different, a lot of different Manytricks ways of managing your windows, and it really makes a huge difference. One of the things I love is I have a key command where I click the key command, and it moves the active window underneath my cursor, which is great when you have two 27-inch screens and the window of the app you just opened is way over there. It's like scroll, scroll, scroll. I just do, Command W or the caps lock W, and boom, pops over and under my cursor, and it's really great. So that is Moom, and it is available in the Mac App Store. It's available on SetApp, I think. Oh, I don't remember if it's on SetApp, but it's definitely in the Mac App Store. You can buy it directly from them, and it is inexpensive. It's $10. So well worth it, I think. Good. So that's it for this episode. I do want to, before we go, I want to say that if you have any feedback for us on anything we've talked about, you can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. You'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week in our show notes at sqpn.com. Please join the StarQuest fan club by texting StarQuest to 66866. That's StarQuest to 66866. The most immediate result of that is you're going to get a couple emails a month about the latest shows and episodes and what's coming up, and you get some previews of forthcoming shows and episodes and that sort of stuff. So text StarQuest to 66866 and then follow the prompts from there. Until next time, Jack Barazzini, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
And Thomas Senherho, thank you as well.
It was a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.